I envision a Pennsylvania where people with disabilities are in control of their own lives.
I imagine Pennsylvania where people with disabilities have access to services and supports.
I imagine a Pennsylvania, all of whose communities are inclusive.
I see a Pennsylvania that values all people.
We are
the Pennsylvania Developmental Disabilities Council.
The Pennsylvania Developmental Disabilities Council funds projects throughout Pennsylvania which demonstrate new approaches and best practices for people with disabilities. They then advocate to make those approaches real at all levels throughout the Commonwealth. Committed to the inclusion and integration of all people with disabilities, projects go together with individuals who do not have disabilities. Council projects do not seek to change people with disabilities, but rather change the systems around them. The Leadership Development Project matched over 70 young leaders with individuals who are each established as leaders in their own fields. This project, funded by the Council, has succeeded in not only encouraging young leaders with disabilities, but has also ignited changes in workplaces which will serve as a model in creating inclusive work environments for people with disabilities.
Competence and confidence partners in policymaking for emerging and established leaders was developed about 4 years ago. And we developed this project in particular to pair emerging leaders with established leaders in the field of disabilities.
29-year-old Christy is a youth leader and participant in the Leadership Development Project funded by the Council.
My main goal is just to prepare myself to be a better advocate out in society, and also teach other people with disabilities that you can also strive to be the best person you can be out in the community.
We do this activity called speed mentoring, where people actually have an opportunity to spend about 5 minutes with one another, and then they move on through the room. They'll move from table to table.
Sometimes when you become older, you get a little cynical. You get a little worn out, but Chrissy always had that get up and go. She increased my own motivation.
And it was a very easy match for Chris and Carol because they both selected one another as their number 1 or 2 picks.
She was very grateful for the mentoring and the friendship that developed.
It just made me be aware of the things I needed to work on more, working with Carol and now working with Denise. Kind of highlighted that for me.
I think when we go out and do training, particularly for individuals with disabilities, she represents a role model to people out there in the field. And so that's really probably to me, the biggest benefit, because not only can she do lots of great work, she also can stand as a role model. And I hope that for her time here is as valuable to her, what she gives to us.
Dave Simpson is a poet, musician, and singer who in 1999 at the Amaryllis Theater experienced an audio-described performance which led to a newfound fascination with theater.
The first time I came to a show that was audio-described, it was out of a kind of broad curiosity about what that could be like. So when I heard that there was going to be an audio-described performance in Philadelphia, and it was a gala that I went to, so there was some singing, there was even some dancing, and I thought, I'm not going to really like this wheelchair dancing thing. Part of it is just like, how can people dance in wheelchairs, and the other was just, it's going to be visual, so I guess I'll just get through that part of it. And I was amazed having earphones on so that I could hear somebody in the lighting booth quietly describe what was happening between the two dancers. It was amazingly sensual. And it was about that time, I think, that I got to know the work of Mimi Smith and the Amaryllis Theater Company here in Philadelphia.
When I started Amaryllis, my friends from the disability community would call me and say, why can't I get in this theater? Why can't I take classes? Why can't I do this? Can you help me? My friends from the cultural community would say, you know, we have to become a little bit more accessible. We don't know what to do. What are we going to do? Can you help us? So at one point, I just decided that this community need to talk to this community and not everybody go through me, that it would make more sense and everybody would get to know each other. So we create a shared program so that people don't have to put out money to become accessible. What we do is we purchase audio description equipment and captioning equipment, and we train people in the cultural community themselves to work the equipment or provide the audio description service. And then we loan them the equipment, and they can provide that service for people who are blind, low vision, or people who are deaf or hard of hearing without any cost to them at all. And so we've been working with 81 cultural organizations, most of them theaters, but I think the biggest change for me is not really that there are more ramps or that there's more equipment out there, but the disability community, particularly artists with disabilities, are more included in the overall work of the cultural community in general, and we want everybody to see that.
So what happened is I came to Mimi and said, gee, I think I really would like to take an acting class now that I've been to some theater that has audio description. She asked me if I'd like to read for a part in a play they were doing. And that led to my getting the part, and I was the only person with a disability in that particular show, and it was the most marvelous experience.
Since 1973, the Pennsylvania Developmental Disabilities Council has funded projects that have led to the identification of best practices in disability services and supports. The Council works to ensure that people with disabilities in Pennsylvania can have an active participation in inclusive education, work, recreation, leisure, access to inclusive childcare, healthcare, housing, and transportation. Over 1,250 people with disabilities were trained through projects supported by the Council aimed at advancing best practices in disability employment. 11 school districts worked through projects supported by the Council to create a culture where all children can learn and grow. 255 private landlords were engaged through projects funded by the Council in the creation of accessible, affordable housing for 98 people. 18 public boards included people with disabilities in their operations and decisions through education efforts sponsored by the Council. Council-sponsored projects assisted 500 young people with disabilities transition from school to adult life. The Council continues to make these practices real throughout the Commonwealth and to change systems at all levels.